This is Oliver, and Oliver's off to his first day of school, and he's worried. What if he doesn't make friends? What if it all goes wrong? Oliver decides to hurry to school so he can make it to school on time. As he was walking into the school, he came to a door. As Oliver entered the room, he was confronted with a classroom full of boys, making noise. The room was very plain, with a blackboard centered at the front of the room. Pencils and ink pots filled every table, and he saw the teacher, Mr. Armstrong, charging towards a student at the front of the room. Fear settled across the room as the students knew what was to come. He was headed towards Imot, a troublesome student who always showed up late to class, and he was making noises, disrupting the silence within the room. As Mr. Armstrong marched towards Imot's table, he stood tall, firm, and stern. Mr. Armstrong, with the cane still in his hand, he reached above his head and came down with a striking crack across Emot's knuckles. Silence reigned the room once more, and whimpers from Emot were all that could be heard. Oliver decided he didn't like the classroom and continued walking down the hallway until he reached the second door. The second door was from the 1970s, which saw a shift in classroom behaviour. First thing Oliver realised was that boys and girls were in the same classroom, integrated into group seating, which was very different from the rows he experienced in the 1950s. More technology began to appear. These included black and white TVs, Cuisenaire rods for maths, cassette players, overhead projectors, and even radios. Tables were filled with pencils, rulers, compasses, protractors, textbooks, and workbooks, all for the students to use while they were completing their learning. Oliver still noticed that in this time period a blackboard still stood proudly in the centre of the room. The mathematics lesson that featured Cuisenaire rods was far more practical than the 1950s lesson. He did notice that the cane was still around, however only used on very extreme cases, and a shift in behaviour management saw reward systems being put in place. But Oliver still felt out of place and decided to explore one last classroom, so down the hall he went to find a bright red door. Oliver slowly pushed the door open, not knowing what to expect. But he was greeted with noise, bright colours, and cheerful students working collaboratively with each other. Oliver was excited to be a part of this fun and this interactive classroom, which represented schooling in the 2000s. As Oliver stood at the doorway, looking into the room, his eyes were drawn to one particular corner, which had beanbags, cushions, and a large variety of reading materials the children could use at any time. This was called the reading corner. Oliver's eyes continued to wander around the room until he fell upon the smartboard. He saw children touching the board and writing their names on it. He was amazed at this. As he kept looking, he also saw other pieces of technology, such as iPads and computer monitors. Oliver kept exploring the room and looking at all the lovely work students had completed. And when he stumbled across a chart which had all the children's names on it, and some stickers next to the names. This was a chart that showed positive behaviour and learning in the classroom. Oliver liked the vibe from his classroom. Teachers were far less physical in means to behaviour management, and instead students were just sent out to another teacher or the principal. And the children that did have behaviour issues received a monitoring card, which tracked their behaviour further down the track to ensure they were improving. Oliver finally found the decade that suited him best, and so Oliver stayed and quickly found new friends. He couldn't wait to return home to tell his parents all the new things he had learnt from school today.